Welcome back to the Chess Channel. Got Felix and Mike here today, and we're going to walk you through how to prevent the 4-move checkmate trap.
Well, Mike, let me tell you, in high school, I used to lose to the 4-move checkmate all the time. I would play a friend of mine, and every time we played, he would beat me with the 4-move checkmate.
Brutal.
So one day I told him, I'm never going to play you again unless you teach me how to stop this. And he did, and ever since then, I've never lost to it, and that's what I want for all of our students.
Okay, so let's walk us through here the 4-move checkmate, right? So e4, e5, and bishop c4. What's going on here?
Well, the bishop is attacking the weak f-pawn. The f-pawn is the weakest pawn on the board because it's only protected by the king. But in this position, it's okay because there's one attacker and one defender, so the pawn is safe.
Okay, so let's just develop a piece here. We're bringing out the knight to c6, and now the action starts, right?
That's right. Now we have the queen and the bishop attacking the same pawn.
Teaming up there.
And if black doesn't do anything good, the queen will take the pawn, checkmate, game over.
Right. I mean, if black tries a normal move, a developing move, like knight f6, I mean, they're attacking the pawn on e4, they're attacking the queen. On the surface, looks pretty good, but they forgot about something very important here, right?
That's right. The queen is going to sneak behind the knight, take the pawn, checkmate, game over.
Yeah.
The knight move looked great, but unfortunately the queen could get in behind it.
That's right. You know, and I like to, at this point, pause, and I ask my students in the classroom, who's fallen for this trap before? Just raise your hand. And Felix, you know what happens?
How many people raise their hand?
Only one, and that's me. You know, it's really hard to admit when you've made a mistake. But, you know, just remember, every master was once a beginner, and most, if not all, chess players have fallen for this trap at one time or another, right? But the important thing is, you know, to ask questions and to say, you know, what went wrong? You know, not to be afraid of losing a game. It happens to us all. But learning from it and not repeating the same mistake, and that's what we're trying to do here.
And that's the most important thing here.
Okay, so what should we do here, Felix?
All right, there are several ways to stop the checkmate here. We'll start with queen to e7. This is you call it the default move.
Yeah, default safety move. I like it because it's not hard to remember. You know, they brought their queen out. You bring your queen just one square in front of the king, and it saves the day.
That's right. I tell my students all the time, if you put your queen in front of your king, she will protect him against the 4-move checkmate.
And Felix, what happens if somebody takes the pawn anyway, checks the king?
Oh, well, I have some students that will not want to take the queen because they'll say, I don't want to lose my queen.
That's right. But they're not losing their queen, right? They're
No.
just exchanging it, and in fact, they're winning a bishop for a pawn, which
That
is
is
pretty
correct.
good trade,
Yes.
right? Okay.
We'll be up 2 points, and that's the best way to play it in that position.
Okay. And the other way here is...
The best way is probably pawn to g6.
Okay.
This is the way that I figure most masters would play it. It does two things. It attacks and defends. It attacks the queen on h5, and it also prevents the queen from going to f7 and checkmating the king.
Right, they can't jump over that pawn there,
That's
right?
right. No jumping queens. So the queen's going to have to move to somewhere safe.
Yes, and I know there's one other move there, right? I know sometimes people like to play this knight h6 move.
That is correct. Knight h6 does work. It's not the best move, but we'll go into that another time in our second video.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to stick with g6 here, and then the queen's going to retreat. Wait a second. What if they take that pawn on e5, though?
We would love that, because what would happen? The knight would take the queen.
Oh, that's right. Happy birthday, right?
Happy birthday.
Nice little gift there. Okay. All right, so now we're back to f3, but this is tricky because the queen was in danger, so we figure she moved to safety, but we don't want to forget about that f7 pawn again, right?
That's right. Now the queen and the bishop have now come back to try to checkmate again. And the pawn's in danger. So here we have to either protect the pawn a second time or put somebody in the way.
Right, and so we can protect again with queen e7. That's our default safety move. And we can also play knight f6, right?
And this is the move I think you'll see most masters play. It does two things. It gets the knight into the game, stopping the checkmate, and it gets black ready to castle.
That's right. And in fact, wasn't this move a mistake before when the queen was on h5?
That's correct, and now it's not.
So one move later can make all the difference, right?
Right.
Okay,
Now-
so I'm sorry. Go
Now-
right ahead, Felix.
Black has one small problem. He's created a hole on G7, so he's going to have to fill that hole. So let's move on. And now the bishop can go to G7 and fianchetto, and Black can now finish by castling, and his king is very safe. He has a good position, and he's ready to counterattack in the game.
Okay. That's great. Now, what happens if white changes the move order a little bit in the beginning? I know sometimes instead of bringing that bishop out, people like to bring that queen out, right?
That's correct. And this is a very tricky move. It's attacking 3 pawns, the H pawn, the F pawn, and the E pawn.
Yeah. In fact, I got to just tell you a funny thing. One time I had a student say, "What's the worst move in the position?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "King E7, checkmate, checkmate in 3."
Even worse than checkmate in
That's
4.
right. That's right. Now we don't want to fall for that, but we do need to protect that E5 pawn. I mean, will G6 work here?
G6 is not a good move. It looks good, but the queen will take the E pawn and fork the king and the rook. But this is something we will get into more details in our second video on how to prevent the 4-move checkmate.
Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is Mike and Felix for the Chess Channel. We'll see you on the next video in part 2.